Mario asks, when you disassemble your motors to clean them, what kind of lubricant do you put on the shaft, if any? This is a joke, right? Hey, Bardwell, what kind of lube do you put on your shaft? Okay, I'm going to take your question seriously. I don't disassemble my motors and I don't clean them. The way that I clean my motors is I arm my quad and I put my quad in turtle mode and I arm the quad and I go joop, 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 and then I go fly. And if that motor doesn't spin from that, then I cuss and I throw the quad behind me and I get a different quad. And then when I get home, I go, and if it still won't clean out, but that fixes it most of the time. You don't need to lubricate your motor shaft at all. If you lubricate anything in the motor, it would be the bearings. But the bearings that we use are pre-lubricated from the factory. And generally, if the bearing is to the point where lubricating it helps it, it probably isn't in great shape to begin with. But once you lubricate the bearings, you're going to be lubricating them with like a light penetrating oil. And the problem is that the bearings come from the factory with like, they're packed in a grease. And when you start putting the light penetrating oil in, first of all, second of all, third of all, what am I up to? If you just take the light penetrating oil and you drip it on the shroud of the bearing, a lot of times it doesn't even frickin' go in the bearing. You're not doing anything. In order to really lubricate bearings, you want to take them out and you want to soak them in a plastic bag or in a cup overnight. So most people don't do that. They just take some race oil, some bearing oil, and they kind of drip it on the bearing, and then they're like, oh, hey, you did nothing. You didn't do anything. If somehow you do manage to get the oil inside the bearing, the oil starts to dilute and make the grease that's in there less effective and eventually washes it out. So I'm told. I haven't verified this personally, but... So then, once you start lubricating your bearings, you have to constantly lubricate them because the light oil runs out and it runs out the grease. So basically, I don't lubricate my motors. Not just because I'm an influencer and have motors falling out of my ass. That's not true. I do sometimes obviously get stuff for review, but for the most part, I buy my gear because stuff for review oftentimes isn't the exact stuff that I want and or comes with strings attached that I don't really want to. So I don't lubricate them. It's just not worth the hassle to me.